time is here.
Merry Christmas there, nerds. It's Mr. Cack here, and this is Rage You Nerds. And I'm here to answer a question I've had for quite a while. Are some of these movies actually Christmas movies? We've been involved in, we've all heard, whether by joke or by seriousness, because some people probably have gotten to knockdown, drag-out fights about this, certain movies and questioning whether they are or aren't a Christmas movie. And Christmas seems to be the season, the holiday, that has more of this than anything else. I feel like Halloween might be the close second. Thanksgiving has like one horror movie that's worth a dang. But Christmas is the big one, right? We all seem to have that one movie, whether it's Die Hard, whether it's Gremlins, whether it's A Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, there's these movies out there that you look at and you see elements that show Christmas, and you want in your heart of heart to believe that that movie that I like is a Christmas movie. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a small moment to just go through a couple of these movies and determine if they are, in fact, a Christmas movie. Now, you may be asking yourself, Mr. Cack, how are we going to do that? How can you do such a subjective thing? Well, it's still going to be pretty subjective, so you don't have to believe me in any way possible if you don't want to. What I will say is that we're going to meet a couple of criteria, and if the movie fits them enough, we will deem it a Christmas movie. What are the criteria that we're looking for? We are looking for is the movie setting Christmas. So not only is there just decorations abound, but is the central setting of the whole movie revolving around Christmas. Now, there are certain movies that have Christmas as part of a montage or Christmas pops up in it. I think of like Mean Girls, where they go through certain holidays, but that's to show a passage of time, and Christmas isn't the primary setting. Number 2, love and or a redemption story. So this one's fairly obvious. It's either like the Hallmark movies where you see love and the spirit of Christmas whisking these two love-struck people into this relationship, or the redemption story is very much the Scrooge story. So any Scrooge story you've seen out there. My favorite is Bill Murray's Scrooged, but I mean, if you also like the regular Christmas Carol, I mean, you can like that too. Number 3, family coming together. So a big staple of Christmas movies happen to be this familial remembrance of, oh yeah, we have to come together, or this is a time where you put aside your differences, maybe family has been estranged, maybe someone has been out of someone's life, and through the spirit and harmoniousness of Christmas, they come together. Number 4, traditions are a focus. So we don't just mean any old traditions, we mean specifically Christmas traditions. So you see a family coming together, or you see an individual coming together, or you see someone understanding the importance of these Christmas traditions. So something like Christmas with the Cranks, right? Where you have these cranks who have decided to save some money, go on a cruise, but over the course of that, they're shamed by the town to remember their Christmas heritage. And through that, they also, I guess, technically learn that, oh yeah, the reason we did this stuff is not just because it was, just Christmas, but there was a bigger picture there. The love, the harmoniousness, the feelings that we're bringing together. So we're looking for these 4 things to check off when we're assessing, is this movie Christmas movie material? So that's just a couple of the quick criteria that I think I'm going to try to measure these movies on. And yes, it is all subjective, as I've already said, so there's going to be a lot of points to argue. That's fine. Put it down in the comments below and let me know what your arguments are. The first movie I would like to tackle is Gremlins. Now, if you haven't seen Gremlins, you are missing out on a hilariously good little comedy horror film from the early 80s. This movie came out in 1984. It came out the same year as Ghostbusters. It came out the same weekend as Ghostbusters, technically, I think. This movie is marketed as Steven Spielberg Gremlins. Actually, Steven Spielberg was an executive producer. For those of you that don't know, studios have this little fun, or producers themselves have this little fun trick where if they want to see a property made and the studio doesn't feel confident in seeing it made by whomever the actual director is, they will slide in, or someone will come in and slide their name to a property to allow it to be pushed through. It's kind of a Trojan horse, if you will, right? We put Steven Spielberg on top of it, who have just made Indiana Jones. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark was out that year. So you have Spielberg, he's done E.T., he's done all these things that's already earned his accolades, and now he's using his name to get this movie made. Because realistically, this movie wouldn't have gotten made if Steven hadn't been associated with it to some degree. So while Steven didn't direct it, Steven was just an executive producer, and he had creative control. The reason Steven Spielberg liked this film is because it was unique. At the time, we hadn't really entered the genre of horror comedy. It was a relatively new thing that was starting to be explored more and more. Conveniently enough, Ghostbusters and Gremlins coming out at roughly the same time was the genre really kicking off at full force. Both films had elements of horror. Both films had elements of comedy. Both films confused the crap out of audiences but delighted them nonetheless. With Gremlins, you have the story of a father who's trying to figure out inventions and become this great inventor himself, but also wants to be a good dad and buys a present for his, I assume, 30-year-old son. He's probably in his 20s. He looks older. I don't really remember how old he's supposed to be. So Billy gets a Mogwai. Mogwai is this cute, adorable little bastard that would eventually be stolen and created into Furbies.
Yes, like that. Absolutely. So many ways to play whichever.
But a Mogwai is just a cuddly little furry creature that seems to have sentience, and why we choose to own and domesticate such a creature feels morally wrong. But I think that's also part of the central point here. But before we get into all the fun and shenanigans of the movie itself, let's answer this question. The setting. The setting is clearly Christmas. Christmas is presented all throughout it. The reason the Mogwai is given to Billy is for a Christmas present. Christmas trees are up, presents are present everywhere. You have Christmas lightings, you have Santa suits, you have everything in this setting almost at all times, except for a couple of moments here and there where Christmas is a thing. There's even a moment in the film where Phoebe Cates' character, Kate, who's the love interest of Billy in this film, goes through a very weird and horrific story where she, in the most stone-faced, serious manner, discusses her memories of her father dying, trying to dress up as Santa and come down her chimney. And it's one of those moments where it's done so seriously and there's nothing really around it except for a pause. And then eventually we continue on with the story. But it's one of those moments that's just like a jarring gut punch. You're not sure why this was included. And in fact, if you actually look up some of the trivia on this film, it is a point that the studio wanted it removed from the film. But the director said, "No, I like it. Let's do it." Even Steven Spielberg wasn't necessarily a fan of it, but said that Joe Dante, who was the director of this film, it's his movie, so he should do it. It really is a testament to how much Steven Spielberg liked the story that Joe had created, that he wanted to not push back against something that he thought, why are we doing this? And so it's kind of funny now in retrospect. And then in Gremlins 2, A New Batch, they actually parody this moment by trying to shoehorn in another tragic story, which is not as nearly impactful, and you can tell they're doing it for a goof. But yeah, it's one of those weird moments. Okay, so we have setting down. Setting is a check mark. But now let's get to the other criteria. Does the story itself convey one of these Christmas tropes? And I would answer this very simply. No. And so that is the simple way of putting it. While the story itself I highly enjoy, there really isn't a Christmas theme getting picked up from there, right? There is no redemption story being told. There is no love story being pushed, or no love story that's the central theme that Christmas is kind of molding to happen. There is no family being bonded here. The family itself was never in a bad spot. The father was out of town, but still cared and loved for his family. The mother was very supportive, even though she didn't really believe wholeheartedly in the inventions of her husband. And both of them cared for their son. Even the dog was a loved family member. So the family itself was in perfect shape, and by the end of it, I don't think that they were any different. They had a new perspective on life and living because they survived these little green monsters taking over their town, and some of them had near brushes with death. But there was no refining of traditions here. In fact, the moral of the story is what a lot of people would argue is pretty anti-Christmas. And if not anti-Christmas, which it's hard to flat out say it's anti-Christmas, that becomes a loaded little conversation point. But if nothing else, it's societal capitalism. It's very anti, because at the end we have the shop owner who sold reluctantly the Mogwai to Billy's father come back and take the creature because he'd heard through the grapevine this tragedy happening in the town, and just immediately assumed, that's my Mogwai getting wild over there. So he returns, he picks it up, and then he kind of scolds the family, saying that this is what the society does. This is what people do. You take a natural gift like this little creature that is basically a human that just doesn't speak all of our language. But I mean, Gizmo was saying words. It's not a pet. But you take these things from nature and we just kind of exploit them. And so at the end of this, you don't have a tale that tells you, hey, Christmas is a time for coming together, or hey, you should appreciate and love your families. You have a Chinese man yelling at you that because of your own greed and corruption, you take this beautiful Gizmo and you turned him into Stripe. Which actually is a thing that was supposed to happen. One of the original drafts of the movie itself. So before I give my final verdict, let me give you a little some more trivia about Gremlins. In the original script, the movie itself was actually a lot darker. In fact, the mother, in her battle with the Gremlins after they hatch from their eggs, cocoons, pods, whatever they are, she was actually supposed to die in that battle with them. So when we see Billy come home and she's, been roughed up by her battle with the Gremlins in the kitchen and throughout the house, he was supposed to come home to her head being thrown down the stairwell. Think about that for a minute. Think about, to put this in better perspective, this movie was marketed as a Christmas film for children. Now, I don't think it actually was, but at the time, movies were PG or they were a harder rating. There was no PG-13. In fact, this movie and Raiders of the Lost Ark, both with Steven Spielberg's name on it, because of the backlash he faced from the standards of this country and other countries, I think more so in the UK, he petitioned for the cinematic rating conglomerate, alliance, association, whatever they are, to come up with another classification that's between PG and between R rating, so that way there could be some more context to, hey, maybe this isn't good for a kid, but maybe a slightly older kid. So that's how PG-13 started to get the ball rolling on it. So hey, Gremlins, you did something impactful. But yeah, no, they were supposed to throw her head down the stairwell. Additionally, other dark moments that were supposed to happen in this film is that the Gremlins were supposed to eat the family dog. So Billy's dog, who is kind of getting tortured at different points in the show, was going to be eaten by the Gremlins. There was supposed to be a scene in McDonald's where the Gremlins overrun a McDonald's. And instead of eating all the food like we see them do in the movie theater and in the bar scene where they kind of just take over that and just start consuming the food and beverage that are prevalent in that scenario, they were actually supposed to eat the people that were trapped in the McDonald's with them. Again, think about that. Some families thought that they were bringing their kids to a Christmas show, and now they're watching little green monsters eat people in a McDonald's. Lastly, Gizmo himself was supposed to become Stripe. I don't know how this transition was supposed to happen. I assume that Gizmo was going to just, because of neglect or because of something, was going to break those rules, eat after midnight, and then instead of getting this villain in Stripe that we get, it was going to be Gizmo becoming the evil gremlin and then probably enacting everything. And again, just think about how bizarre that would be, that you meet this lovable little creature and then going into the second act, he suddenly becomes the primary antagonist, which honestly is something that horror movies now do, but at the time would have been so far bizarre for where this film was. Steven Spielberg didn't like that idea. He actually is a very smart person and saw the marketing and audience captivation that was going to happen with Gizmo. Gizmo's adorable. He's voiced by Howie Mandel with his little Howie-isms, and so yeah, people immediately thought, I love that thing. I want that thing. That thing is my friend. And so instead of breaking everyone's collective hearts by having him turn evil, they kept him as a good guy. And, I think it makes the movie a lot better. And it helps also keep it from being too dark of a... So then, is Gremlins a Christmas movie? Well, it nails the setting, but it doesn't nail the story of Christmas itself. So I would argue that Gremlins is a good movie set during Christmas. Gremlins is a good movie. Gremlins is a good movie to watch in Christmas time, but I would say that it's probably not a Christmas movie. And if you disagree, let me know. Yeah, I don't expect everyone to agree with this. I would like to if I have more time to continue on doing other movies. So I would really like to do Die Hard or Nightmare Before Christmas next. But hey, let me know down below in the comments. Are there other movies that people would argue with you aren't a Christmas movie that you consider a Christmas movie? Let me know in the comments below, and maybe that'll be the next one I do. I don't have a lot of time to do this, but if it does well on YouTube, then this is definitely an idea I would like to pursue in 2024, closer to the Christmas time. So maybe next December, if this works, this would be something I would look to do throughout the month of December. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We really, really appreciate that. And it's Christmas time. Merry Christmas, nerds. Merry Christmas, nerds. I've been Mr. Cack. This has been Rage You Nerds. Gremlins is not a Christmas movie. Argue with me if you want. If you don't, suck it. All right, bye.
Christmas time.